Good afternoon. We're going to wait for people to join. All right. It looks like everyone has joined.
How many people are there?
I'm not sure.
Okay, no problem.
You will be able to see down in the chat box how many people have joined eventually. And we can talk about that towards the question and answer. Okay. All right, I'm gonna get started. This is the COVID-19 Small Business Relief Grant Program. And today the agenda is we're going to go over the guidelines, and then if you have questions, please enter them in the chat box. I will demonstrate the form and then finally answer questions. So our application deadline is 11:59 p.m. on Thursday, May the 7th, and the information, the application is computer generated, so it will shut down at exactly 11:59 p.m. And so if you could get your applications in before that, that would be great so you don't get cut off. Businesses can receive a one-time grant of $7,500. A total of 67 grants are available, and that's for the Alameda area, excluding Alameda Point, and then on Alameda Point, there's 13 grants available. The total amount of available small grant funds currently is $600 for a total of 80 grants. I'm trying to move this off the screen. Okay. Small businesses with 1 to 25 full-time equivalent employees or restaurants with no number limit of employees are eligible to apply. And what's meant by equivalent employees is, say you have 5 full-time employees and 10 part-time employees, and those part-time employees work 50% of the time. If you add the 5 part-time employees and then the 5 full-time employees and the 10 part-time employees that work part-time, that equals 10 total. The 10 part-time at 50% is 10, and then the 5 is 5, and so that's 5 plus 5 is 10. You must have a physical establishment in Alameda. That means that you must have a regular storefront or business in Alameda, not a residence, as far as the establishment is concerned. You must show a significant loss of 20% or more from March 16th through the application date. And you must have a current business license. And if you're in a business improvement area, and that's an area that is along in the Webster Street or the Park Street area, and you should know if you're in that area because you have to pay assessments. Your assessments must be up to date. let me know in the chat box if you have further questions about the BIA. Those who are ineligible to apply are financial institutions, banks, lenders, landlords, publicly traded companies, nonprofits, sole proprietors without employees, elected and appointed officials, city employees, relatives of city employees and elected officials, and city employees, elected officials and city employees. So if you're a relative of an elected official, an appointed official, or a city employee, you're not eligible for this program. Guidelines. Funds must be, sorry, I'm having problems with the screen here. Funds must be used to pay rent, operating expenses, or payroll. Please keep your receipts in case the city requests them. The city reserves the right to audit records. And then the demonstration of the form. Before you all start filling out the application, what you should do is you should go to alamedaca.gov and then COVID-19 grants. And on that page, which we'll go to shortly, there's a list of things that you should have available. I recommend that you scan all of your documents ahead of time, put them in a folder for convenience. And then when you get to the city's website where the application is, you're going to have to create a username and a password. So now I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then I'm going to share again and go to the city's website. All right. So now I've just taken that Alameda.gov COVID-19 grants and put it in the website address bar, and then I'm going to hit enter, and I get to the city's page, and here you'll see the guidelines. So you can read the guidelines ahead of time, and you will see that all of the requirements are there. And then right here, I was talking about making sure that you have the documents required. Here's a list of all of the documents, and then also you will need a copy of your business license if you have it, and we'll talk about that also a little bit later. So I'm gonna now scroll down and go to the website where you're to submit. So I'm here, and this is where you will have to log in. I have already logged in, and so what I'll do is just hit apply. And then I will go through the requirements. So again, here are the guidelines again. You could read through those. These are the things that you're going to need. It also talks about who's eligible and who's not eligible. All of the things are repeated here that you saw on the other website. And then what I need you to do is fill out your business name here. So I'm going to go through this and start filling it out. Lois Butler. And then I can't spell my own name. Project management. Actually, my old business name was Butler Project Management, so let's use that. And then my first name, my last name, my daytime phone number, and then a secondary phone number if I have it, an email address, and a secondary email address if I have it. If someone has additional ownership, put the highest ownership. If somebody has 20% ownership, put their name in this area and their email address, especially if they have 50% ownership. If you have 50% or more, you should be considered the primary person. And then the establishment address. I have to apologize, but the way this form is set up, you always have to enter the United States. So you could just type United, and it should come up, United States. And then putting your address, it has to be an establishment in Alameda. Put in your address, and then the state and the zip code. And then if you want your check to go to another address other than what is above, then what you need to do is you need to fill out the mailing address. The establishment address cannot be a P.O. box. I'd like for you to select one of these. Say you're a small business. That's what you select. If you are a financial institution, one of these things, you'll see where it'll say, sorry, you are not eligible for this grant. It will let you continue to fill this out, but we will get an alert, and then you will be told that you're not eligible. Okay. Then if you would select a business that best describes what you do. For me, I'm in government, so I would say other. And since I said other, unfortunately, this is in the wrong place. It asked me the type of business, and I'm going to say government, which makes me ineligible. And then, is your business a brick and mortar? If you could say yes or no, just for this purpose, I'm going to say no. And then it tells you that that you're not eligible. If I said yes, that would not pop up. I can just move on. Do you plan on closing in the next 6 months? You could say yes, and it just here is asking you for an explanation of why you think you would want this grant, or no, and nothing will pop up. Is your business closed? This one's yes, and then you could continue on. If you say no, then it will ask you, actually this one doesn't. Okay, location, we'd like to know where your location is just for our reporting requirements. So if you would select a location, I'm going to say Alameda Point, because that's where I'm located. And do you have a copy of your current business license? If you say no, that's fine. You don't need to provide it. You don't need to call the finance department, because we have a list of all current business licenses. But if you have it handy, it would be helpful for us to get that from you, and then we could just look at it. If you say yes, then choose a file, and and then just upload that file. And I have to cough, I apologize. I'm going to get something because my mouth is dry, so I'm just going to put something in my mouth. Excuse me. All right, so you can see how I chose that file. Maybe it's 2 pages long. I can choose another file and then upload that as well. So you can see here that because I named my file what I wanted to show up, it shows up that way, and you can see that you've uploaded it. And then it keeps going, so we're just going to skip that. Okay. You do need to upload your W-9 form. It's important that you upload your W-9 form in order to qualify for this grant. Any incomplete applications automatically get eliminated. So make sure that you upload your W-9 form and get that in. And then here you would put the proof that you've applied for federal assistance, and that proof can be an email from a bank saying thank you for your application, it's in process. It could be, or it could be a grant. You could have applied for another grant other than ours. So proof that you have done something to try to support yourself and your business. And then it goes on and on where you would need to upload these documents. Your 6-month income statement, your revenues for March, your revenues for March, again, one's 2019, the other's 2020. Your expenses for March 2019, your expenses for 2020, and then payroll. I put here October 2019 through March 2020. We could talk about this a little bit later. Your W-2 forms to show that you have employees. Some people say your W-3 forms, but your W-3 forms also have your W-2 forms connected to it. So we need to see those W-2. And then if you should sign here. You need to check this box, read what this says, because if you submit something under false, if it's false, then there's a penalty of perjury here. So then you sign. Once you check that, you sign your name, and then they would hit apply. It's obvious that I missed some things because it's not going to let me apply. Well, maybe it will. But you don't want to apply unless you've filled out everything. Okay. So now I'm going to go back to the slideshow presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen and go back to the slideshow presentation. All right. And I'm going to ask Amanda to come on. Amanda Gerke, who's with me. And we're going to go through questions in a minute. let me just say that your application needs to be 100% complete. As I just indicated, that's really important. If it's not complete, then you will not qualify for the grant. All documents submitted are subject to the Public Records Act. And now we're at questions and answers.
Okay, so yes, my name is Amanda Gerke. I work with Lois Butler in community development, and I'm just gonna go through the questions that you guys have entered. Please continue to enter questions as they come up, and we will try to get to all of them. So the first question, someone asked where or how can I submit the application? And looks like my colleague Annie put the link to the application in the chat box. So hopefully that should provide that answer to you. The next question is, does home residence qualify for physical establishment?
No, residents don't qualify for a physical establishment.
The next question is, how much of the funds have already been used?
None of the funds have been used yet. We are waiting until the date the applications close, and everyone will have an equal opportunity to get the grant. If you qualify, if all of your information is there and you have a 20% loss, all the people who have a 20% or more loss will be put in a lottery and chosen from the lottery.
Next question is, will these slides be posted on the website?
The slides aren't posted. I don't know any reason we can't post them, but the webinar, this webinar and the last webinar will be posted.
Okay, the next one is, can you apply multiple times for a higher chance of getting accepted?
No.
Good question though. Since most businesses keep monthly books, i.e. March 1st to 31st, April 1st to 30th, etc., how do we best show our loss of business from March 15th through May 7th, 2020? Should we send gross income from 2019 versus 2020 for the same time frame?
You can provide your statements for March as it's indicated in the guidelines. In the last webinar, we had people saying that they didn't show a loss in April, so you can instead provide April. So in addition to March. So we're asking for 6-month income statement from October through March, the end of March. We're asking for March expenses 2019 and March expenses 2020 and March expenses, revenues 2019 and March revenues 2020 to compare the two. If you think April is more suitable for you, please provide that. And so you can provide income statements through April as well.
So this one says, I filled out the form, but I was told they were attending to only agriculture sectors. I think, Lois, I might have an answer for this. That sounds to me like this person was applying for an economic injury disaster loan from the SBA, which are only accepting applications at this point from the agriculture sector. So this Q&A is for the City of Alameda's Small Business Relief Grant Program, which is separate from the SBA's loan program.
And for this program, you have to have a business in Alameda and not Alameda County. It doesn't apply to Alameda County businesses outside of the city of Alameda.
So next question, is there a time frame in which the grant funds must be used for operational expenses?
No.
Okay. Does a paycheck protection program or disaster loan application in process or actual receipt of award prevent one from qualifying for this city grant?
No.
You mentioned we could submit W-2s for our employees. Can those be from 2019? Does this mean we do not have to submit payroll per your dates listed?
You should also submit payrolls, but if you submit the W-2s, that helps us to not go to you for additional information. For some people, we might ask for additional information on the payroll.
As I understand the process, all applications will be checked to see if they meet the eligibility requirements and have the required information attached.
Wait, excuse me, I lost you. Could you repeat?
Sure. As I understand the process, all applications will be checked to see if they meet the eligibility requirements and have the required information attached. Those that do meet these requirements will be put into a pool, and a random lottery process will be used to select those businesses that will receive a grant. Do you plan to notify applications whether they met the criteria and were put into the lottery selection pool, as opposed to not being put into the pool because they did not meet the eligibility criteria? In general, what communication and at what stages can we expect to hear from the City of Alameda as the selection process gets going? Will we be notified that we met the criteria and are in the lottery for a grant? Will we be told how many businesses are in the lottery pool?
Okay, so everyone will be in the lottery if they did the basic uploads and without us reviewing your revenues, expenses, and things like that. And then we will pull from the lottery we'll have the lottery, and then we will check all of the criteria afterwards. That will allow us to do a faster vetting of the people who have won. I don't know if that makes sense, so let me restate that. So basically, if you upload all of your documents, we're not going to go through those ahead of time. If you upload all of your documents, and what we are going through ahead of time is if you have your business license. So if you don't have your business license, if it's not up to date, then you automatically will be disqualified. You won't even get to the lottery. If you have your business license and then you upload all of your other information, then we'll put you in the lottery. And then as we pull the names from the lottery, we're going to vet the rest of the information. And so if you don't qualify, if you get selected and you don't qualify, then the next person will go to the next person until we get the number that I've indicated.
So, and then there was some question about, in general, what communication and at what stages can we expect to hear from the city as the selection process goes along? So when will they next hear from us after submitting their application?
So on the 21st, we'll post the people who have won the lottery.
Okay, and will we also be emailing people to let them know that post is up?
Yeah.
Okay. What if you just started your business and haven't made any money before the pandemic, but you're still paying your rent and other utility bills and your staff?
So there are businesses that won't be able to show that loss, and so they won't qualify.
I am a sole proprietor. We work as a family business. Usually I count my expenses and revenue at the end of the year. I did fill out the forms and put any document that will prove my income and expenses. Should it be enough proof?
So sole proprietors without employees are not eligible. If you have employees and they equal 1 to 25 employees, or if you're a restaurant and you don't have any employees, you can apply. We'll just have to review your information, but the requirements are that you have an income statement from October to March, and that you show your revenues and expenses for March 2019 and March 2020. So if you can't do that, you may not qualify. You have to be able to show that somehow.
Why are you asking whether businesses have applied for federal or state pandemic funding?
Because we want businesses to be able to help themselves. And if you're not helping yourself, we don't want to necessarily help those businesses that can't help themselves.
Will a tax return from last year prove enough?
I'm not sure what that means, if it will prove enough. It doesn't prove the 20% loss. So if that's your question, no.
And to the gentleman who asked that question, if you want to clarify further down in the chat, we can come back to that. Is the lottery a public process? Who will participate in the selection and vetting process?
So the lottery process itself, we're still working on that. We put this program together really quickly, and we're still working on that. We plan to have a computerized lottery process, and I don't know if that computerized lottery process can be public or not, but we'll let you know.
And then who will participate in the selection and vetting process?
So the vetting process is there will be 2 staff people, and right now we have one nonprofit, and we're looking for the second nonprofit person per the council meeting that we had on this. We don't have everything together because we are trying to move fast to get you guys money.
So this one says, isn't it true that sole proprietors and self-employed businesses can apply as long as they have at least one full-time employee?
That is correct, yes.
And then another clarifying question about sole proprietors. I'm a sole proprietor. My wife and kids work with me. Are we qualified?
You need to have one W-2 employee working for you.
So this is the end of the questions that we received. Does anyone else have a question that they would like to submit? Please type it into the chat and we will answer it. Let's just maybe leave a minute for that. I'm not seeing any other questions come in. Lois, do you have any other comments?
I just would like to say thank you for joining us, and if you have any additional questions that aren't answered, we are going to be posting questions and answers on the website. They are extensive, so you could download the document and search it for your type of question. Hopefully we'll get that up today. If not, we should have it up by tomorrow. Thank you very much for joining us, and good luck.
Lois, it looks like we have one more question coming in.
Okay.
So someone is asking if they can unmute and ask their question verbally. Okay, yeah, we're having a few other questions come in now too over the chat function.
Could you just do it over the chat, because we want to make sure we're monitoring it?
Okay, so to the gentleman who was asking about that, why don't you we won't end this until you have had time to type your question. In the meantime, I'm going to go to someone else's question. What if I am the only one working, then am I not qualified?
If you're the only one working, are you not qualified? If you have employees and they equal one full-time employee, then you're qualified. Otherwise, if you're the only one and there's no one else and you're not a restaurant, then you're not qualified.
So we have a question here about physical establishments. So if the office is in an R4 zone and the S Corp is paying general liability and business licenses, has an employee with payroll services, hosts meetings, but not on Park or Webster Streets, can it be construed as a brick and mortar?
Okay. So is this your home residence? You would have to answer that question. Residents aren't qualified. But if you are in a zone where commercial is allowed and you have a regular office and you have a full-time employee, then you would be qualified. I know that some R zones allow commercial development, so you would have to, I would have to know whether you're in an area that allows commercial development and whether your place is a residence or a commercial development.
We should put out our email address.
Mm-hmm.
This person could follow up with us. All right, so I'm gonna enter the EconDev email address in the chat. And if that person who asked that question could follow up with us with their specific information, we can help them get to the bottom of it. Okay, so we now have the question from Stephen. Stephen, are you done? Oh, it looks like he's still typing. So I'm gonna, Stephen, are you done typing your question or not quite? Okay, I'm gonna give him a little more time. We'll go to another question. My wife's name is mentioned in the business license as cook. Is it enough as proof? I think this is a question about having an employee.
Yeah, if you're a sole proprietor and you don't have a W-2, then you don't qualify. Whether you could have many people who get paid and get regular checks that are part of the ownership of a business, but if they're not W-2 employees, then if they're 1099 employees, if they're part of the ownership, then you don't qualify. If your wife is not part of the ownership because she has been excluded from the ownership and she is a W-2 employee, then that would qualify you. But some of the structures of businesses are very complicated, and the owner would have to be very clear that the wife is an employee and not an owner of that particular business.
So Lois, I'm also noticing that he mentions his wife is a cook. If this is a restaurant, do the rules apply a little differently to him?
Yes, restaurants can apply
without they don't have to have any employees. So
correct.
So Jonathan, if you own a restaurant, if you're applying for a restaurant, then you don't have to have any employees. Okay, so I think we have the question from Stephen here. Both of these 2019 requests state that if your business is new, that February 2020 can be supplied. My business began in April 2019. Therefore, your request for March 2019 income and March 2019 expenses can't be met by me.
There's a footnote there.
Wait,
he
acknowledges that. He says, you state that for businesses that are newer than February 2020 income and February 2020 expenses can substitute for the March 2019 requests. Oh, this has not been emphasized in your presentation. I want to be sure that February 2020 financials will be accepted as your instructions state.
Yes, thank you for that. So let me just repeat what he has said. If your business opened after April 2000 or after March 2019, you can use February 2020 for your expenses and your revenues instead of March, because you wouldn't have your March expenses and revenue.
So we're at the end of the questions again. I think we should give it another minute or two and see if anyone else has anything. We've got another question coming in from Stephen.
Okay. Well, someone asked how many people were here at this on this webinar, and there's 38, and I think we have 3 staff people, so 35 if you don't include staff, or maybe 34 because maybe we have 4 staff.
Okay, this is saying, I assume that the 20% drop in income will be based on comparing February 2020 with March 2020.
Correct. And the other thing that I should bring up is if there's an explanation of why you need to use another month between now and between March 16th and now, you should put that in there. And if you have the March information, put the March information in there also. So if you guys want to use April instead of March to show your losses, you can do that. But I'd like you to upload an explanation of why you're using April instead of March. If something that I've said isn't clear, I can restate it if you would ask me to restate it.
So another question came in. If the number of people who applied are less than the amount of the grant, can some people who are short with the proof be eligible?
No. And currently, we have, last time I checked, we had 187 people apply already. That was for the portion of the grant that didn't include Alameda Point, and 10 for Alameda Point. So perhaps that situation could happen in Alameda Point. I doubt that it would happen for the rest of Alameda. And the reason we have Alameda Point separated out is because their funding is restricted to their area.
Okay, we have another question. If we have a new employee, W-2 in 2020, but we only issued Form 1099 for his year 2019 wage, can he be counted as an employee?
I guess I have to ask a second question. Is your employee on the books now? And what month did your employee turn to a W-2?
January 2020.
So yeah, you could include that employee because it doesn't restrict you if you didn't have that employee on the books in 2019. So you would be able to apply. You just should provide information on the payroll and make sure you verify that the person will be a W-2 for the year 2020.
So we're at the bottom of here's a new one. You plan on posting the names of those granted the award. If a person's name isn't on the winner's list, how do they know if they were entered into the lottery versus having their application rejected, possibly because of an error?
That's a good question. I need to think that over and consult with folks, but we're planning to just post the people who have won. So that's a good question. I will provide an answer to that question.
So
but not today.
Do you think, will we post it on the website or should we email folks with it afterwards?
I think we should post it on the website. It's a good question for everybody to get an answer to.
Okay. Let's see. So so he was just further saying essentially there are no appeals even for applications perhaps wrongly rejected to enter the lottery.
Well, we're going to have more than one person review the application that are rejected so that one person doesn't make a judgment on that.
So we're at the, I think Stephen is just commenting that it would be nice for people to know if they're put into the lottery or not. But I think we're going to be getting back to him on that. Yep, we're at the end of questions again, but let's give it a minute or two, see if anyone else has anything that comes to mind.
Okay.
All right.
No additional questions. Thank you very much. If you have any additional questions, again, if you could look at the question and answers that will be posted online. If that doesn't provide you with enough information, you can email econdev@alamedaca.gov. We put that information in the chat. And it's also online on the city's website.
Okay, one question just slipped in. Are cafes and delis considered restaurants?
Yes.
And finally, if I win the Powerball lottery, can I still play in your lottery?
Would you really want to do that? If you just won $1, yes, but otherwise, it would be hard for you to show that loss, right? It would be more fair to let somebody else have it. I'm not saying no because it's not in our rules.
Okay. I think we are officially at the end now. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate your time and being here.
Thank you.